All the available wood grew on the nearby hills. Slowly, it became harder and harder to reach. Eventually, the supply could not keep up.
There is a deforestation that's radiating out away from the center of the settlement, and wood that should be renewable as a resource. But now we come into this problem with goats. One of the things that goats love are brush, and probably the sweetest brush there is a sapling or seedling. And so this is a irreversible deforestation. As long as you keep goats around there, those trees are never going to grow back.
For the first time, human communities were destroyed by environmental collapse, which they themselves had caused.
Population at Ain Ghazal dropped, it plummeted from what may have been its height at 3,000, perhaps even more, down to several hundred people.
Towns like Ain Ghazal were finally abandoned. The archaeological record almost disappears after 2,500 years of settlement. Many of the survivors were forced to become nomadic herders ranging across the exposed highlands. It would take another 1,000 years before farmers found a way to survive in this landscape again. In Europe, the advancing farmers were still trying to use methods from the Middle East. But this world was very different.
A lot of the technologies needed to be rethought. You needed to work out ways of constructing houses purely out of timber instead of out of the mud that you'd used previously. You needed to work out ways of dealing with dense forest.
As they moved north, they moved into a European climate. The seasons were much more extreme. Here, farming seemed to be impossible. For 1,000 years, they had no answer to winter. They could go no further. Finally, they succeeded, breaking through with a complete rethink of their farming methods. They realized that timing was critical and worked out exactly when to plant, how to grow and harvest before the winter. They learned how to use poorer soils.
So now farming is spreading to a whole range of soils which are not so productive, and therefore you need to clear more and more and more of the woodland in order to get the same sorts of yield from these poorer soils. And so the plough arrives as the solution to a problem.
With a plough, the farmers could cultivate much larger areas. It dug deeper to turn over these heavy northern soils. It was a new and uniquely European farming lifestyle, and it spread with amazing speed.
I think one of the reasons why it seems to spread so rapidly, it is astonishingly fast, it's like dropping a match in a pile of dry hay. And the dry hay is the problem, the fact that the farmers are having to cultivate more and more land with their own efforts.
They changed so much, they created a new way of life. Archaeologists call them the Longhouse people. They lived together with their animals in these huge communal buildings. Massive forest timbers, whole trees, held up the roof. Their possessions revealed a new kind of conformity. They all used one kind of axe. They had one style of pottery incised with lines. Perhaps it was the only way for Stone Age farmers to absorb so much change and finally adapt to a new landscape. It was these Longhouse people who perfected the use of the most European of farm animals, the dairy cow. In only 300 years, farmers had spread east to Russia and west to northern France. The continent was dotted with cleared fields. The face of Europe had changed forever. As they moved further north, the farmers found new groups of hunter-gatherers. They had plenty of food in a hard climate, where the farmers struggled. These northern people had studied their world for 5,000 years. They left little behind but their graves. In Denmark, at Vedbæk, is a cemetery with 25 bodies. They lie on the antlers of deer. This woman died in childbirth. Beside her, with a piece of flint, the baby lies on a swan's wing. These people show no influence from the Middle East. They retain their own hunter-gatherer culture. The dead lie as they have been allowed to decay. Their skulls remain with the things they loved in life. These hunter-gatherers were able to coexist with the farmers. They were useful to each other.
It seems that farmers and the last hunter-gatherers probably lived side by side for much longer than we previously thought, and all sorts of relationships must have developed between them. But as the farmers became predominant, so the remnant hunters must have melted away to join the farming populations. That was where the excitement was.
But the hunter-gatherers were creative and curious people. They too could work out how to adapt farming to their particular landscape. There's very little evidence that these two cultures clashed violently. Mostly, they taught each other.
Europe wasn't that full. There were plenty of opportunities for people to find land to farm. It was that the advantage slowly went from being a hunter and gatherer up in the hills to being down on the plain with the rest of the farmers, exchanging things with them, interacting with them, and enjoying the excitement of human contact and being part of a larger group.
Ultimately, the decision was about food. The hunter-gatherers abandoned a life with the fear of hungry times for the secure harvests of settled farming. In fusing, farmer and hunter created the culture which started our Western way of life.